Hi, Maria Mandarino here today, and I apologize for being away for longer than I thought. Just when I say I think I'm going to be back here doing this more regularly, it ends up not being how it works out. So I apologize for that, and I'm going to be upfront. Probably not going to be posting episodes here as often as I had been, or as often as I'd like to, at least through the summer is my guess. If I can be here more often, I will. Um, some um, some things that have gone on, you'll notice my background's a little different. That's actually very much in transition. I did move my studio for recording, and that's just not together yet. Not that that's really the obstacle here, but it took some time. And imagine whatever backdrop behind me you'd like to see. I envision horses or possibly the desert. But fill in as you need to right now until I find the artwork that I like. So there's that. My acupuncture clinic moved a couple of times in a very short span. It was only supposed to be one move. It ended up being two. So I've moved that office as well at the same time. So it's been a lot. Um, and frankly, with everything that I've had to juggle, I've not really felt that I've had anything of great value to share here. And sometimes it just takes a while for things to build. And for me to, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I'm a woman who loves patterns. And I'm seeing a pattern emerge. So that's one of the things I want to talk about today is a pattern that has to do with their Enneagram fives and astrology, particularly Mercury and how Mercury expresses itself in your chart and how that reflects your five nature. So I'm going to talk about that today. The episode's called Enneagram 5, Mercury and Crossing the River Styx. So before we jump into that and go down that rabbit hole, please remember to like, comment, and share the episode. And most importantly, please subscribe to the channel as well if you have not done so already. We've got a lot of people that are watching the episodes but not subscribing. So if the content is something that you resonate with and you'd like to see more of, that would be the best way to be informed when I do have an episode coming up, or if I do have any special offers, which I'm going to talk about that today as well. I do have a special offer that's going to be coming up. And so yeah, so if you subscribe, you'll be kept up to date on all of that. And it also really helps the channel to grow and reach more people, which is the whole purpose of why I do this work. I want it to reach people and help people. So so I think that takes care of all the housekeeping. So first I want to just kind of do a quick little overview of a very limited overview. It's not the whole picture of five. So if you are a five and you feel I'm leaving some things out, I am on purpose. So we know the five as the observer. And full disclosure, I do lead with Enneagram 5, so I'm coming directly from this energy myself. Um, so fives are the observer. We also call them the researcher. Most fives that I talk to, or people that have easy access to five in their Enneagram. Most people that I meet that have five energy love being called a researcher more than the observer, which I think is kind of interesting. I like both names equally. So yeah, but the observer, the researcher, typically they're the quiet one in the room. That depends on subtype, so I'm not painting with that one with a broad brush. But and I say the quiet one in the room because they are the one observing while everybody else may be engaging. The five, I kind of think of my five as being the satellite dish in the room, just kind of taking it all in, from all directions. And typically that ends up being the quiet person who's doing that. And again, it depends on subtype. So we're not going to be absolutes. Most of what I do, honestly, here or in session with people, I'm not the absolute person. I don't think anybody who does work like this should be coming from a place of absolutes. So bear that in mind. Okay. Um, So fives are the kind of people that do run well in the background, because they are observing, they're taking it in. Where that gets sticky for them is when they start to feel overwhelmed and too much is just required of them, usually at the interpersonal level or the social level. But typically they'll run really well in the background. Um, and for this reason, they are great in a crisis. And for this purposes of this episode, I'm going to say fluid in a crisis. There's a reason that word's going to come back around for us. Um, they adapt well. We think of adapting as a three word, right? And it is. But when it comes to being in the crisis, fives adapt. So that's that fluidity that can happen for fives in a crisis. But essential to the five is they will need to recharge later. And if they don't, and it's not just later in the window where they need the recharging, where they really start to feel like, okay, I've given, I've performed. Again, there's a three word, right? But I've given, I've gone into the crisis, I've done the things. I got to take care of myself now. And if they don't, within that window of where that need is, there can be some real repercussions there, even to physical health. So, so the need to recharge. The five, because they are the observer and the researcher, they are the person who tends to just know things. And if they don't know it, they have that spidey sense. Typically more if they're a five with a six wing, where if they don't know it, they know what they have to go dig around to find out, and they will find it out. They will get the information, they will get the data. Um, so the intellectual domain is important to the Enneagram 5. Um, they're often accused of thinking over feeling, and it's not that they don't feel. Fives feel, but their head types, right? So the intellectual domain, the thinking domain, the place of thought and reason is going to play louder, or just it'll be on a higher shelf for them. So it'll be more important for them. The feelings are there, important for feelings to be efficient. Messy feelings are not where five goes. But they do feel deeply. They don't necessarily show it. Or people can't see it. So it depends again on subtypes. Um, so again, emotions to a five will usually not feel efficient, so they don't like to put those emotions on display. Fives can also be highly dependable, and because they are focusing on the facts and the details and the information and the data, they're often accused of being aloof. Or they're seen by others as non-fives as being aloof. So the episode is called Enneagram 5, and I'm looking at the title I gave it, Enneagram 5, Mercury and Crossing the River Styx. So I want to talk about Mercury for a little bit. First, I'm going to take a guess that um, so Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So it'd be interesting to look at your chart and consider where Gemini and Virgo, or how Gemini and Virgo play in your chart. The planets I usually, the placements I usually look for are the sun, the moon, and your ascendant. Um, as far as Virgo and Gemini, do those are the first places I look for Virgo and Gemini with a five. Um, If they're not there, take a look at your chart and where your Mercury placements are, what house, what rules that house. And that will tell you a little bit more. And again, this kind of gets into a little bit of subtypes too. So no hard and fast rules. Remember that part, right? But I guarantee you there'll be a pattern. So that's kind of what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be absolutes, but I guarantee you you'll find a pattern if you're five that has to do with Mercury, because Mercury is the planet that rules the mind. It's Mercurial. It has to do with thought, thinking, reason. Okay, so I guarantee you, if you're a five, Mercury is somehow has an important place in your chart. So Mercury itself is fluid. Literally will, roll around. We don't play with Mercury because it is dangerous. It is lethal. But if you've ever seen Mercury roll around, it's this metallic ball that will just kind of mold to its environment and adapt. Um, Again, there's that word adapting, that we don't associate with a five. But I think the adapting for the five comes in the ability to observe and reason. I think that's how the five does their version of adapting. I didn't intend on talking about adapting in this episode, to be very honest. So it's funny how that's coming up. I assume that may end up being important for somebody listening. So again, Mercury, mercurial mental energy, rules Gemini and Virgo. So again, I'm betting that those signs will be prevalent somewhere in your chart. Um, and so here's where I really want to go, and the reason I'm choosing this episode now. So we've just gotten through Gemini season, we've moved into Cancer, and and everybody else who's out there talking about astrology right now is looking at Cancer, which is the logical thing to do. But here I am a five, right? So what do? We look back. We look back at what's happened, try to make sense of it, right? Go to that mercurial place. Um, so so if any of this hits with you, I want you to actually look back at your Gemini season and just see how any of this maybe was playing for you. Um, Particularly because Mercury is said to move between heaven and hell, the only one of the gods that can go into hell and come back up and reach the heavens. Unique to Mercury. And I would say unique to Mercurial people, and I would say fives are Mercurial people, right? So, and it brings me back to this idea of how fives do crisis, like I might be a little biased, but I'm going to say like no other type, right? And that's not true. But it is my bias coming through. But we do it well. I'll say that much. We do it well. Um, And here's the other piece I want you to look at. And it's not the focus of this episode, but I'm going to throw it in. Because depending on where Pluto is in your natal chart, that can tell you a little bit more about how you can really work with that Mercury. So again, Mercury can go into the hell realms and then come back out and reach the heavens and vice versa, right? So we have the hell realms, right? And I'm going to switch back to Pluto now. Pluto has a lot to do with transformation, death and destruction, but transformation. I tend to look at it that way. Um, but also Pluto has to do with the riches that are in the earth, in the dark, in the soil where we can't see it by light of the day. We have to dig for the minerals that are deep, into the earth, right? So that's something we associate more with Pluto. But since Mercury can go into the dark, since Mercury can journey into hell, depending on where your Pluto is, depends also what kind of riches you can pull out of hell. So I'm just going to leave that there. Um, and and by the way, this is very much how I work with people when we're doing Enneagram and when we're looking at the chart, when we're doing spiritual direction using both of these resources. This is how we work. So my question is, if you are a five who has been, particularly in this past Gemini season, if you have been put into a position of having to be the person or the only person in your sphere of influence, maybe, who can go between, who can go into the underworld and take care of business, whatever that means for you, for the people around you, the people who rely on you, the people who depend on you, or maybe you're just the one who can get the uncomfortable stuff done. And if that's a theme that you've noticed, um, I want you to look into some of these things. Look at your chart. Um, and really reflect more than just use the chart. Really reflect, maybe journal. If you do keep a journal, look back through some of your entries during the last few weeks. And my guess is, as a five, if this has been going on for you, you're probably feeling some overwhelm. I think it's those there. But you're probably feeling some overwhelm, and or were feeling it. And if you're still feeling it, um, or if you've gotten through it, things cycle, right? They happen again. Because you are a five, because you are mercurial, because I guarantee you Mercury has a prominent place in your chart somewhere. Um, I'm going to ask you to remember this, that when you're in a storm, when things are grim, things change, right? When there's a hurricane, eventually that hurricane moves through and the sky will be blue, right? So I want you to hold on to that, because sometimes mercurial people, especially the fives, who need to do the things, handle the crisis, do it well, but then they need to recharge. And in that gap, and to me, this is the gap before they get to leave the hell realms, but they know they have to, but they're still there, but you can't see the light yet because you're still too deep into the dark. Um, Remember that Mercury goes between. Mercury goes in and out, through hell, out of hell, to heaven, back down, back up to heaven. That nothing is permanent, nothing is static. Nothing is in life, nothing is permanent, nothing is static. In the Enneagram, people tend to think of that Enneagram as, oh, I'm a five or whatever your number is, right? No, that Enneagram, I hate to tell you, has breath in it. Okay, so which means it has movement in it, which means you have choices, you have options, you have decisions you can make with self-awareness or through self-awareness and knowledge, self-knowledge, right? So people tend to think, oh, I got my label, I'm good. I know I do this. Yeah, well, that's great, but you can also use that information to change how you do things, to be more informed when you do take action in different corners of your life. So to hold on to this idea of when you are in the hell realms, for whatever reason, handling the crisis is how I'm going to label it. Um, Remember, as a five who is mercurial, that Mercury always emerges out of hell. Mercury crosses the River Styx. It's what he does, and it's what he does that no other god does, right? So you have access, not to say that you are Mercury, that's not what I'm saying. You have access to that mercurial energy that can do those movements. And sometimes when we're in the dark places, and again, particularly if we have some hard Pluto placements where it just feels really ominous and dark and heavy and just, oppressive, um, you gotta remember that Mercury's job is to go into hell and leave hell and go between heaven and hell. So I want you, as a five, if you're feeling that, or if you have ever felt that you're losing your energy because you've just given a little too much, you've handled one crisis too many, nobody's paying attention to the fact that you're really wanting to collapse in a corner, and you know you need to go collapse in the corner, and you will. Um, Also, don't lose sight of the fact that Mercury is designed to do this in between, in and out motion. That there's no way you can emerge from it, is basically what I'm saying. There's no way you can, as a five, when you just think, I'm going to collapse and die, remember Mercury, you're not going to collapse and die. You're going to emerge out of it. And you have the ability to go up to the light in the heavenly realms too. But it's a journey, right? It's a journey in, it's a journey out, right? So So fives can just get easily overwhelmed and forget that. So I don't want you to forget that. I want you to really think of Mercury, and that fluid capability that Mercury has, and how you have that yourself, um, somewhere in your chart and certainly in your Enneagram. Um, so what else do I have for you? Talked about Gemini season that we've just left. So I want you to, again, want you to look back on where maybe this theme has just recently played for you, because it's probably been a topic for you if you're a five, somewhere, somehow. So I want to briefly talk about the offer that I'm going to be running for the month of July, from July 1st to July 31st. It will be a limited offer. It's going to depend on how many spots I have. So I am going to open up my schedule for, it's a half-hour special where we basically get to look at your chart the way I've just kind of discussed. Looking at your sun, and this is not just for fives, but my guess is it's the fives that are going to be a little curious about it. But I really do hope all nine types will explore this, because it's valid for everybody. So it's looking at your sun, your moon, and your rising. And if you are a person who is finding yourself tested in mercurial ways, in being called or drawn into the dark, into the hell realms, right? And if you've been a little overwhelmed by that, it's kind of like a very mini spiritual direction session where we're really looking at the chart, knowing your Enneagram type. So this is kind of for people who already know your Enneagram type. And you don't have to know your chart, but if you do, it's a little easier. I'll have your chart, set up during the session. I'll need your birth data. So you would have to know your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location of birth. That's essential. And then you would send me that in advance. It's a little half-hour mini session for only $47. So these are tools that you will have forever. Obviously, knowing those the three, the three bigs that we call them, again, sun, moon, rising, ascendant. So that's information that will empower you forever. But also knowing how those dance with your Mercury, when you are challenged, when you do feel like you can't find your way out of the dark places, looking at your natal chart and knowing where those things live in your natal chart. And those are all we're going to look at. We're not looking at other transits. That would be a way longer session that we need more time to do justice to. But this is, again, just going to be looking at your sun, your moon, your rising, and your Mercury. This is, again, not limited to fives. I think there are other types that find themselves going into the dark and maybe being overwhelmed by the dark when this happens. Some that come to mind for me would be sevens who try to escape it. Um, but the dark's going to scare you, right? So sevens would benefit. Again, what's a seven but a head type, right? Another mercurial type. Sixes, in a different way, you go into that doubtful, questioning place, right? Also Mercurial. So five, sixes, and sevens, I think, would definitely be drawn to this. Nines, because you merge. I think this is a journey in your chart you may want to be more aware of. So if you do find yourself in the merging, getting drawn into dark, heavy, corners, knowing where your Mercury is and how it's dancing with your nine is helpful, because eights have a line to five. I think eights could benefit from this, certainly, especially since eights tend to be more intense in how they do communicate. Mercury also rules communication, by the way. So I think eights would benefit from it. Ones, even though you're a body type, I think you're also pretty intense thinkers, your intensity. Um, my ones have pretty sharp minds that I work with. So knowing where your Mercury is might also be helpful and interesting. Um, twos, with your very tender and open and giving hearts. When darkness enters, um, when the hell realms come into your world, or you enter the hell realms, um, I think you could probably use a hand. Um, and we do have the invisible, I call it the invisible line between 2 and 5 in the Enneagram. It's not actually a drawn line, but there is a connection. There's what I call an unpaved path between the 5 and the 2. So, yeah, because of all the use of the word adapting, I'm not even going to go into the 3. I think the threes, your heart types, man, when you feel the heart types feel deep, right? Deep can get dark depending on what's going on. So yeah, fours for sure. What do we know about the fours? They love to go into into the deep and the dark. Like that's why you're here, right? So it'd be really interesting to see where your Mercury is as well. So yeah, I think that covers. I think I hit all 9. So my point is, what is the Enneagram? But looking at all the 9 reflections of the face of God. So one is not more important than the other. I just decided to come in with 5 because honestly, again, I have a direct experience to it, but it's all I've been dealing with in the past 2 weeks at least with clients. So it definitely seems to be it's at the surface for my 5s for sure. So, but I think it's probably at the surface for more than the 5s. So so ask yourself, where and how do you cross the river Styx? Where is Mercury emerging in your chart, particularly for the 5s, but for everybody? All right. Thank you guys for being here. Please remember, most important, subscribe to the channel if this is content that you enjoy and that you feel you benefit from. Please remember to like the episode, share it, comment. I would love to hear your thoughts on this material. And if you know where your Mercury is, share a little bit about that. What has your Mercury taught you about your ability to march into hell and emerge out of it and reach the heavenly realms. So yeah, again, thanks for being here. We're certainly at I keep saying this, we're at a transitional time in history, and that the ante keeps getting upped a little bit each week, which I would say it certainly just has. So I'm recording this on the 22nd of June. So so yeah, these are good skills to have right now. All right. Thanks so much for being here. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.